Hare Krishna, this video is for ISKCON insiders. It's a video about dress code, the issue that sometimes comes up, how to dress in the Hare Krishna movement. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, recently posted a comment, a statement by Prabhupada from 1966 or 1967, wherein Prabhupada makes a certain statement, says something, and this devotee friend of mine, who I really admire, said, in my opinion, it's fairly clear that Srila Prabhupada was more happy for ISKCON devotees to dress in dhoti, kurta, and sari, etc., although not absolutely insisting upon it, than not. And then he gave this quote from Prabhupada, which I put up right now for you to read. Regarding our Sankirtan party members dressing up as hippies in order to increase book distribution, this is not a very good plan. I am instructing Bali Mardan Maharaj that this should be stopped, that we should not give anyone cause to call us hippies, but the devotees can dress in respectable clothes like ladies and gentlemen in order to distribute my literature under special circumstance. And my friend circled this point here, but even this program should not become widespread. Now, to counteract or to counter this, because, if you're going to talk about dress code in the Hare Krishna movement, you have to, refer to the teachings of the Bhagavatam, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and, specifically Prabhupada's statements, right? But if you're going to look at Prabhupada's statements, you got to look at everything that Prabhupada said on dress code. You can't just pick and choose. You have to really take into account the whole gamut of what Prabhupada said. And he said very different things at different times. So I'm going to present really quickly in this video two really far out quotes, which I find far out, from Prabhupada, that establish what I believe a very good argument for this following assertion, namely that Prabhupada actually could only dream, was hankering for, never got to see physically in his physical body, a community of Western Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis dressed precisely in Western clothes. So before I get to these 2 points, let's just quickly dissect this one quote that my friend quoted. You got to remember the context. I always mention this. You cannot look at Prabhupada's statements on dress code and forget the demographics of ISKCON at the time. What do I mean by that? Demographics, a sociological term. How many people, what kind of people, what social class, what age group, and particularly what ashram they're in. So it is beyond a doubt that from 1966 to basically the early 1980s, at least in North America, all of ISKCON membership, specifically, especially until 1977, when Prabhupada was on the planet, the ISKCON demographics in North America were those of a monastic movement. In other words, everybody was a brahmachari or a brahmacharini. Everybody was living in a temple. 99%. There were no such, if you're new to the Hare Krishna movement today, you'll see that, most devotees have their own money, are financially independent, right? They kind of follow a typical Christian church model where there's a few, pastors or monks or whatever, and then there's a huge congregation, right? But back in the 60s and 70s, if you were a member of the Hare Krishna movement, you were a full-time missionary living in a temple. And even if you were married, you were still living in a temple, right? There were very few cases, a tiny percent of financially independent initiated devotees back then. But 95%, I would easily claim, of them were basically living as full-time monks and nuns, right? Why is that important? Because when Prabhupada talks about my devotees, my followers, my disciples, right? He's referring to what he has at the time he's writing those statements. So in 1966 or 1977 or 66 or 1967, even in 1977, what to speak of the early days, when Prabhupada says, this should not become widespread, that devotees should go out in Western clothes, he's referring to his temple devotees, to his brahmacharis and brahmacharinis. And if you don't believe me, look up every time Prabhupada talks about, there are quotes where Prabhupada says that, dhoti is important, the robes, right? much less about saris. I mean, he did bring saris back from India to San Francisco, granted. But in terms of robes, when he uses the word dhoti or robes, you'll see in 99% of the cases, there's always the word saffron and brahmachari and sannyasi next to it or before it. So again, when Prabhupada spoke about his disciples, he basically spoke about his monastic devotees or his disciples who are all, for whatever reason, and that's a whole other interesting topic, living as monks and nuns, right? Nothing wrong with that. It's, it's what it was, and it's glorious. And, why they did that, as I said, it's another topic. But you cannot forget context, right? So that's what I wanted to say on this quote. So now, these two quotes that I wanted to share with you, okay? Which again proved to me that on the contrary, if Prabhupada was here today in 2021, going on 22, and he saw that ISKCON membership is composed not 99% monks and nuns, but the other way around. Now, 99% of ISKCON membership is financially independent householders, right? If he would see that, he would certainly concur with these statements which he made, which are in black and white, and I'm going to share them with you. This is a conversation in 1976, and Prabhupada's talking to some devotees who are, doing outreach work or preaching, quote unquote, and I think it takes place in Tehran or something. No, in Sweden. Sorry, Sweden. And so here's what the devotee says. Well, actually, Prabhupada, we're not coming on to them like we are, Hare Krishnas or anything like that. We are going in karmi clothes. Now, one small parenthesis, the word karmi clothes, right? Devotional clothes, karmi clothes, those terms were not coined by Prabhupada. Just so you know. So in the future, if you're going to use these words, devotional clothes, karmi clothes, if you actually look at the Veda base, there's only a few handful of times when Prabhupada refers to those terms, and he's repeating the words of his disciples. In other words, these terms, karmi clothes, were not coined by Prabhupada. They were coined by some of his disciples. Just so you know. So anyway, karmi clothes, we know that means, it's a crazy concept, but it means, not dhotis and not saris. As if, like right now I'm wearing karmi clothes. I'm speaking about Krishna. I'm speaking about spreading Krishna consciousness. I'm speaking about the teachings of the founder, Acharya of ISKCON, but I'm wearing karmi clothes? No way. These are just clean Western clothes, and because I'm doing service right now to Krishna, these clothes are actually devotional clothes. Like whatever clean clothes you use to serve Krishna, that's devotional clothes. Anyway, parenthesis closed. So here Prabhupada says, how does he reply to that? He says, no. There are many communities, grihastha, in our Hare Krishna movement. We don't say. So what does it mean? Like we don't say what? Well, for that, you can refer to many times when Prabhupada says, for example, in 1966 in New York, Prabhupada says, after hearing Bhagavad Gita, you will have to remain in the same position. Here he's referring to my favorite verse from the Bhagavatam on this topic, the famous Tanaha verse from 10.14.3, where Brahma says, Gyane prayasam utapasya namanta eva jivanti san mukaritam bhavadiya varta stanistitaha shrutigatam tanuvan manobir. Stanistitaha, remaining in one's established social situation, not changing anything external, right? So Prabhupada is referring to this. After hearing the Bhagavad Gita, you'll have to remain in the same position, right? Not that after hearing this Bhagavad Gita, as you are kindly coming here, you will have to take a dress like me and give up your family connection and become a mendicant like me. No. It is not meant like that. You have to change your mentality. That's all. So again, he's just like paraphrasing this verse from the Bhagavatam that, all you have to do is stop speculating, accept the descending process, give submissive oral reception to God's message, to Krishna's message, while remaining in your established social situation. So, if you're a warrior, then stay a warrior. If you're a worker, stay a worker. If you're, a student, remain a student. Just hear about Krishna, right? Just add Krishna into your life. So coming back to this quote from 76, where Prabhupada says, no, there are many communities, grihastha, in our Hare Krishna movement. We don't say that you have to change your dress. And you know what? Here, Prabhupada is actually bluffing. I mean, with all due respect to my spiritual grandfather, Prabhupada is, and that's why I said at the beginning, Prabhupada that was his dream. That was his dream, So like, for example, here in the Krishna West project, we're trying, we've been talking about it for so long, and we're trying to establish a community, right? A community of devotees where, aside from the monks, who, I believe should have their uniform at least some time of the day, the devotees are dressed in Western local dress from morning to evening. I'm talking about a community where devotees show up to a strict, strong morning program and either lead the kirtan or give the class. And even if it's the temple president or the leader of the whole community, again, if he's not a monk, and even on the altar, big deal. I mean, Prabhupada was okay with stitched clothes. He himself wore stitched clothes on the altar. So whether it's a Muslim kurta, Middle Eastern stitched clothes kurta, which Prabhupada himself wore when he's on the altar, I mean, he installed Krishna Balaram in ISKCON Vrindavan wearing stitched clothes, okay? So if we're going to talk about a science of bhakti yoga, then whether you're wearing stitched clothes Indian Muslim style or stitched clothes Western style, it's stitched clothes. Anyway, aside from the deity worship, my point is, we're trying to develop a community, whether it's Krishna West or the Bhakti Center, which is basically kind of there, where householders or those who are not living as strict monks can practice and lead Krishna conscious services, including, the Mangal Artik in Western clothes. And Prabhupada's referring to this here. He says, no, there are many communities in ISKCON, grihastha, in our Hare Krishna movement, right? But there aren't. There weren't in 76, and there still aren't in 2021. The kind of grihastha community that Prabhupada is imagining here, they just don't exist, even in North America, where precisely we're not dressed like the typical stereotype Hare Krishna, right? He says, no. There are many grihastha communities. So you see, that shows here that Prabhupada had a vision of a grihastha community where everybody was practicing this principle of you don't have to change the way you dress. And that doesn't just refer to, congregation members who come to the center or to the temple on a Sunday feast program or to the morning program, but, the head pastor or the head guru or the local GBC who happens to be a grihastha, he has to shave his head and put on and have a shika, and he has to have Indian clothes. No. Prabhupada's not making that distinction. He's referring to the entire community, which includes the leaders, which includes the householder leaders, right? Check this quote out. This is from 1977. Now here's the context. Prabhupada is upset that yet one more sannyasi has fallen down, right? So he's fed up with sannyasis falling down, and he said this should be strictly outlawed, no more sannyasis. Of course, he just said that, but he still gave sannyas after that, because for example, my guru Bhakti Charuswami took sannyas from Prabhupada in 1977, and this is spoken in 1976. So this, you could see it as a sort of a spurt of sort of transcendental frustration from Prabhupada. But listen, he says, so this should be strictly outlawed. No more sannyasis, and those sannyasis who have fallen, you get them married. No more this show bottle cheating. It is very ludicrous. Even if there's a promise that we shall not fall down again, that is also not believable. What is the use? Now, check this out. Prabhupada says, better you go and speak philosophy in your grihastha dress. Not this dress. So not this dress. He's probably pointing to himself, just like he, pointed to himself in 1966 when he says you don't have to wear this dress and give up your family connection, right? Prabhupada is speaking as a sannyasi. So he says, no, not this dress, but you have nice coat, pants, gentlemen. So that, my friends, as Sachinandan Swami says, my dear devotees, this was Prabhupada's definition of what grihastha dress means in 1977, right? And they say that the spiritual instructions, the last ones he gives, are the most prominent or the most important ones, right? They sort of cancel out or whatever the ones that come before. I mean, that's to be argued. But hey, the fact is, Prabhupada gives this. He speaks this in January 1977, about 6 months before passing away. And he defines grihastha dress as nice coat, pants, gentlemen. Right? So now you compare that to what my friend said, that Prabhupada, was saying that no, devotees can sometimes dress like gentlemen, but this should not become widespread. You see? Well, it's contradictory, at least superficially, right? On the surface, it's contradictory. Not really. Not really. This is 1966, was 1967 when everybody's like living in the ashram as monks, as nuns. 1977, it's perhaps a little bit more open. The point is, in 1977, when Prabhupada defines grihastha dress, he's defining it as not kurta and not dhoti. All right, he's defining it as nice coat, pants, gentlemen. And then listen, he continues, who says no? I never said. Just like there's another quote where Prabhupada said, dhoti, you have introduced this dhoti. I did not introduce. So Prabhupada says, I never said, rather, now check this out, rather I shall be glad to see that up-to-date gentleman, okay, with tilak and shika, granted. Why did Prabhupada say that? I mean, if Prabhupada was here, I'd say, why shika, Prabhupada? Shika is not a Gaudiya Vaishnav exclusive symbol. And even with shika, that's a whole other topic, but you see Prabhupada was not insistent on shika either, at least not all the time. The glaring proof is like our dear Ambarish Prabhu, the famous, TOVP Ambarish Prabhu, when he got initiated, and he was one of those exceptional cases of devotees who were financially independent. And when he got initiated, Prabhupada gives him initiation, as you can see in this picture, and he has grown out hair. And there's some quotes where Prabhupada says, no, yeah, you can have hair like Ambarish, right? And there's another quote with Hare Prabhu recalls in his diary at an initiation ceremony in Germany where some devotees had long hair, not like hippie long hair, but just grown out hair. And Prabhupada said, why are they not shaved? And then Hare went and asked them, why are they not shaved? They tell Hare well, we're working, we're living in the world. We're one of those, rare financially independent householders who are not like living in temples as monks. And so Hare tells that to Prabhupada and he says, oh, that is fine, right? Anyway, coming back to this quote, Prabhupada says, rather I shall be glad to see that up-to-date gentlemen with tilak and shika are speaking, right? At least we're talking about clothes here, okay? Let's talk about shika and tilak in another video. But at least when it comes to clothes, Prabhupada says, wow, this is what I would only dream of. I shall be glad to see, like Prabhupada says, these grihastha communities, right? We are many grihastha communities in our Hare Krishna movement wearing Western clothes. I shall be glad to see that up-to-date gentlemen with tilak and shika are speaking. This is very prestigious everywhere. Why this false dress? So, don't blame the messenger here. If some devotees claim that, if you're a householder and you're a leader in the Hare Krishna movement and you're still shaving your head and you have a little shika and you're wearing your white dhoti and your white kurta, okay, fine. I mean, hey, if Krishna consciousness is applicable to any dress, then obviously it's good, you're fine if you dress like that. But if you start claiming, oh yeah, that this was Prabhupada's favorite, this was his, his preferred way for me to dress, you're dead wrong. You're dead wrong. Because here Prabhupada says, on the contrary, why this false dress? And then he says, what is wrong to become a grihastha? So you see in 77 here, Prabhupada is very clear in his mind. He imagines grihastha means nice, just dress like normal, just like the Bhagavatam says. I mean, after all, if Prabhupada is a pure devotee who never deviates from what scripture says, then you can be damn sure that Prabhupada backed up the verse Tanistitaha from Srimad Bhagavatam, this principle which Lord Chaitanya himself also emulated in his own life when he was a grihastha. He didn't change the way he dressed. That he himself instructed to Raghunath Das before Raghunath Das becomes a sannyasi, because before Raghunath Das, becomes a renouncer, he's a householder. And this famous instruction where Lord Chaitanya tells Raghunath, no, don't become a false renunciate, stay at home. And he goes as far as saying, practice your Krishna consciousness internally and behave in such a way that no one will even be able to know that you're a devotee. That's right there in either Chaitanya Charitamrita or Chaitanya Bhagavat, right? So Prabhupada was, the pure devotee that he was, did not deviate from the Bhagavatam. There's no way. And so here you see him clearly having a vision of what a grihastha is. It's not a devotee with a shaved head and a shika. Or okay, shika, he did like shikas. But hey, at least in terms of clothes, it's not the white dhoti and white kurta. Prabhupada calls it false dress. He says, what is wrong with becoming a grihastha? And grihastha he defines right there as nice coat, pants, gentleman. I rest my case, Your Honor. So, conclusion. we can dress however we want to spread Krishna consciousness, to practice Krishna consciousness. Yes, no question, no doubt. Come as you are. Because, I know some devotees like, why are you telling me to dress this way or this? All I'm saying is that if you think that Prabhupada preferred you, and when I say you here, I'm speaking specifically to men, to householders, or those who are bachelors or vanaprasthas, at least those who are not living in temples, in monasteries, as brahmacharis or sannyasis who are wearing saffron and who have their uniform and they're in their own category and they represent maybe 1 or 2% of the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava community anyway. So if you're not in that category, right? And if you think that, I will please Krishna more, and Prabhupada preferred that I dress in my white dhoti and my white kurta, I humbly say, you better think that again. You better think that again, because the quote that I just showed here, where Prabhupada's imagining, saying we have these grihastha communities precisely not wearing Indian clothes, right? And when he says here, when he defines grihastha dress as late as 1977 and as nice coat pants gentlemen, and he says, I shall be glad to see that. Or when he told Satsuru, that I told you, like he said, wow, this is what I always wanted, right? When Satsuru Maharaj showed Prabhupada a picture of Balavanta, I didn't tell you that, but there's a third one. I'll just make a quick reference here. When Satsuru Maharaj showed a picture of Balavanta Prabhu running for office, dressed in suit and tie, Prabhupada says, this is what I always wanted, that we be known as American Krishnas. So, again, just to conclude, if you think, or if we think, as householder men, that we will please Krishna, and Prabhupada preferred that we show up in our white dhoti and our white kurta on Janmashtami, or during our initiation ceremony, or during our wedding ceremonies, or to give a class, or to lead a kirtan. I would even go as far as saying on the altar, where we may be really wrong, because the statements of Prabhupada that I just showed here seem to contradict our statements and seem to indicate kind of the contrary. That actually Prabhupada would be so happy precisely to see up-to-date gentlemen in the world wearing normal, respectable Western clothes, precisely so that people can listen to our message, to the message of Krishna, and become devotees themselves. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tolerating. And Hare Krishna.